It's been roughly 4.5 to 5 years ago. While my neighbors were at work, they had an issue that they didn't even know about until they got home. And what happened was their barn burned down. And I never really inquired of how it happened, but ultimately, though, there was a total loss. Luckily, their house was far enough away that it didn't burn their house down as well. So this video is not so much about our own personal fire plan, even though we can learn some things from this for our own plans. It's a little bit different when we have a sit down with our family members and go over how we're going to get out of the home, where we're going to go to egress to, a location spot that we all meet up with, and so forth, and things that you may want to grab as you go out, just in case there is a total loss. So this is the thing. We're talking about neighbors here. If you see that a structure on your neighbor's property is burning, first of all, obviously you call the fire department. The fire department was there very quickly in this particular situation when my neighbor's barn burnt down. They tried their best to put it out, but because I live in a rural area, the entire fire department is all volunteer, and all the surrounding fire departments are volunteer. And so it took a little bit of time for them to get there. They did get there pretty quick though, but their resources are very limited. I mean, they only have a couple pumper trucks for this whole area. And so, God forbid, if there was multiple houses burning at the same time, well, one of the houses would probably just burn to the ground because there's just no way, there's not enough resources. And this is just another example that when the more rural you go, even though there's like, for me personally, there's more upside than downside between getting medical help and fire and those kind of thing, rescue type of applications, even police interaction. It's going to take a lot longer and there's a lot less resources just because the population typically is a lot lower in the rural areas. And that's why they call it rural. But when you're talking about living in a city, you might have a fire department every 3 or 4 blocks. The big city that I used to live in, I mean, there's fire departments everywhere. And it was nothing to see 2 or 3 fire departments get together and work on a larger fire. It was just totally normal to have a 2 or 3 alarm blazes, which they mean 2 or 3 fire departments get together to knock it out. So there's a lot more resources, a lot more what you would call mutual aid. Out here, the mutual aid is very far in between. So what would you do? So first of all, you call the fire department. You let dispatch know exactly where it is. And then if you feel like it's safe to go there, which mostly I would just go ahead and go. When you go, though, if you can grab, hopefully you would have a grab bag or a go bag that you can grab with you. And hopefully this would be a very lightweight bag. This might be a specific bag. I don't know. I mean, there's all kind of bag systems out there. You got your bug out bag, EDC bag, get home bag. I mean, all you probably want to deal with is another bag. I mean, no one wants to deal with all his bags. But if you can, this is just something that I put together recently, just thinking about this more. Just a little bag. It's less than 5 pounds, has a flashlight, a little face, like an N95 little face respirator, and some safety glasses and some gloves and just a couple other little things, like a cutting shears and a blade, just in case if I have to cut. And so, I think I also put like a lockpick set in there in case I have to break in or get in there to rescue someone. But, it's just a very small kit. And it's in an actual little waist pack of all things. And it just fits in there out of the way. Just throw it on my waist and run out the door and see if I can't help my neighbor. So when you're there, what do? Obviously, you try to let them know that you call the fire department if there's someone there. And if there's someone there, you also try to get information of, is there anyone still inside the structure? And if they don't know, it may be, if you can do it safely, maybe to get in there and look a little bit. But if you're within maybe, 20 or 30 feet of flames and smoke, it's not a good idea, especially if you have no training at all. I personally have had training in dealing with medical and fire-related issues, but even then, I'd be very cautious entering a burning building. In most cases, you should not do that by far. But and so in terms of if there is someone in there, you've got to make that decision. That's a personal choice. If you want to go in there and risk your life for another, that's on you. But it's one of those things, though, that if it's unknown and there's a high likelihood that there is no one in there, to put yourself in danger or to kill yourself inadvertently, not that you would try to, but to be overcome by smoke, which can happen very quickly. In a matter of moments, you can be overcome and you're out. you're out for the count, and now you're waiting for someone to rescue you. So you become a liability. So you have to think about all this before you do it. Now, in terms of actually after you talk to them, if there is someone there and you acknowledge there's no one in there, you don't need to go in there, and even the animals are out, which are good, then maybe you can figure out ways to help put out the fire if it's not totally consumed. If you can see that it's just confined to an oven or a back wall of a room, just maybe you could help out in this. So maybe getting the garden hose out and bringing it to the home and spraying as long as there's enough fresh oxygen, and opening windows. Now, some people may say, well, you're feeding the fire and you're providing a lot more oxygen for that fire. That's possibly true too. You have to kind of weigh this depending on your situation. But if you can get a lot of water, and if there's multiple garden hoses that can be put on this, and you and maybe another neighbor can start spraying this thing down, it's possible, just depending on how fast this fire is burning. If it's a slow burning fire, you may be able to get it out. Now, another thing that I would consider bringing over, just because where I live, my neighbors are a little bit of a walk away. So that's why I didn't include this in the very beginning of my particular grab and go bag, would be to grab a fire extinguisher. But if you live in a more closer location to your neighbor, maybe grabbing the largest fire extinguisher that you can carry over there could be a big bonus. Not everybody, believe it or not, has fire extinguishers in their home. So when you may say, hey, okay, you don't have a garden hose or any kind of other faucet outside, do you have a fire extinguisher? If they have it, that's great. But if they don't, maybe you can at least help suppress the fire and maybe gain a few more minutes so that the fire crews, when they get there, aren't going to just encounter a full blaze, a full consumption, of the home. So that's a possibility. If it gets very desperate, but it's still a slow burning fire and you don't have any water and you don't have any fire extinguishers, but there's shovels and there's dirt outside, and in most places there are, you can start digging. And if you have buckets, you can put dirt in buckets and throw the dirt on the fire and smother it. There's a lot of other techniques too. But this is just one of those things, though, that is, it's a case-by-case situation. And the reason I bring it up is because that's not so much that I've been asked this question. It's just because I've been kind of like trying to figure this out for myself. I'm about 90%, there in terms of what I would do. But I have to say, when I first saw that my neighbor's barn burnt down, it made me kind of a sick feeling in my stomach because, it's one of those things that it could happen to your own home. And can you imagine one of your buildings, especially your home, burning down, and you get back from work and there's nothing there but ashes? Wow. I think that I would be not more so than just nauseous. I think I'd vomit, and I'd probably have all kinds of problems for quite a while, for weeks and weeks. Because basically you would have to go through the stages of grief. You'd have to mourn the loss of all that stuff and your quality of life. I mean, everything. You have to start over. And of course, depends on your resources and your relationships with others, and how much of community support you can get. Depends on how fast you can get back on your feet. And of course, I hope you have homeowners insurance. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't. And I'm not saying you need to have it, but if you can't afford to replace your home, if you can't afford to rebuild, or if you have no other options, well, I think that the small price to pay for the insurance might be, and it's not an investment somewhat. So people say it could be an investment, but it's at least a safety net. It's almost like, it's an insurance. I was going to say it's like an insurance, but it is an insurance. Oh man, too many videos in one day, right? But yeah, it's kind of like you're taking a chance, and you're taking your gamble. You're gambling that, there's a possibility that there could be a total loss, or at least a partial loss, that you would need to have outside help to rebuild your home. And so there are homes, though, that don't burn down just because of the material that they use. Now, some of the things on the inside could possibly char and burn, but there's a lot of structures that out there that are built of like brick through and through, or concrete, or just a lot of different things, but the majority of homes, I would say the vast majority, over 80%, are very flammable, and they're combustible, and they're just made of wood intermixed with whatever else materials. vinyl siding, or maybe a thin veneer of brick on the outside, but the hot burning timbers on the inside would probably destroy the mortar and make all the bricks unstable anyway, so it's a total loss. But I just wanted to make this video because unless you sometimes think about situations, you don't really even have any kind of thoughts formed. And I'm not saying that you should think about this all the time, but just just make that plan and put it in the back of your mind. And the likelihood of this happening is fairly low, but sometimes you just have to replay things in your mind a time or two, just to kind of get things organized of what you would do. Because if things just, sometimes it happens, just spontaneously things happen. I've had people before in front of me and waiting in line, in traffic. Like, for example, there was one about 7 years ago, a gentleman that just slouched over in his seat in his car. He was driving at a red light. And thankfully, his foot stayed on the brake. And I saw him go right down in his seat. And I got out of the car. Here we are. It's backed up. It's probably like about 60 to 70 cars in line on this red light. It's a major intersection, actually. And I go up to him and bang on the window, and he's not responding. Luckily his door was unlocked. I go open the door. Sir, are you okay? And because I have a background, and I'm not going to get into who I am and what I'm all about, but sir, I know I'm a first responder. Can I help you? Are you okay? And I didn't touch him. Believe it or not, that's the next step, though. You would do a nice tap if you can. But I always do the verbal thing first, so that I don't startle someone too much. And he actually started to wake back up, and then he said, "Oh, I'm diabetic." That's all he can mumble out. And so, I was able to go car to car and ask other people for their sympathy and just, basically tell them this guy needs some sugar, even though I'm not a big proponent for sugar. But we got him a couple pieces of hard candy and got his blood sugar back up enough so that he could safely drive. Now, this is just an example of something that happened so spontaneous. Now, I never really had that so much planned out, but because of EMT training and other types of training that I've had, it was kind of already there in reserve. I just never really accessed the specific type of situation, but I went right into action. And so that's what I would encourage to you, that to kind of think about some of this. If you don't have training in a field, to kind of think about how you would play this out in your head. Of course, things in real life are going to probably be quite a bit different than your scenarios or your hypotheticals, but it is very good to break things down into, what would I really do and what I wouldn't really ever do, and how far would I risk my life for another, and what would you do for another? Because it's very plausible that if people and family members, as much as we won't want to say it, we might risk a lot more of our life and limbs, if you will, to help them than complete strangers. I know some people that would give their life to complete strangers. So this is all very much depending on who you are. And I'm not telling you what you should and shouldn't do. But I'm just saying that I'm sure you would be very appreciative if you had someone that was mindful and they saw that one of your buildings, or even your house in particular, was burning down, and they went into action, called the fire department, and trying to make sure there's no one in it, and try to suppress the fire the best they can, and trying to be safe. So as always, thanks for watching. If you have any other tips for fire suppression, or if you have a procedure you do to help your neighbors, or you would do if you had a situation with your neighbors with issues of fire, or maybe a medical emergency, feel free to put them down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching.